Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Text Cathode. I'm one of your hosts, Mark. Our other host, as per usual, is absent. And if you're going to be scandalized by anything, be scandalized by that. Where is Jason? Folks, man, it's been a wild couple of weeks. It's been a wild couple of days, I guess. Twitter's blowing up. All kinds of things are happening. People are scandalized. Everybody's upset. And I've never watched any of these live before. Are you angry? Not today. Not today. I'm actually not. Sometimes I am. When they pull moves like banning Latin masses, I get a little. But right now, I've actually got good news for everybody today. Okay, we need not be scandalized by anybody anymore. I'm going to give you the silver bullet here because I've been through it at a really deep level. I let it lead me away from the church, and then I came back. So I'm going to share my what I think is what's worked for me. Okay, I'm going to pray really quick, and then if you're listening, please join us. Angela, thanks for coming on. Great to see you. There she is. Great friend of the show. If you guys are not subscribed to Integrated with Angela Erickson, you're missing tons of great content. Get over there, subscribe to that show, and watch those videos. Those are good. That's good stuff. Okay. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Veni Sancti Spiritus repletur accorda fidelium et tui amoris in sibi macende. Imite spiritum tuum me creabuntur et renovabis faciam terra. Oremus. Deus qui corda fidelium sancti spiritus illustratione docuisti. Da nobis in iorum spiritu recta sapere et de eo semper consolatione gaudere per Christum Dominum nostrum. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Guys, is my mic coming through good? I think I set it up to where I've got this going right. So I'm not going to go over all of the hoopla about everything that's come out about certain people in the last couple of days. You've watched Avoiding Babylon last night. They did a good show on it. They pretty much covered everything. What I want to talk about is how we react when we see things like this. So there's a ton of people out there in the Catholic media sphere that are calling themselves things like, Lori, thank you for coming back. Great to see you. And I'm really glad to be able to do a show. I try to do it more often, but I'm a layperson. I have a job, and sometimes I do it. There's a ton of people out there that consider themselves Catholic influencers. That is a term I've heard in the last few years. And it's a pretty disgusting one when you stop and you think about it for just a moment. Okay, I'm going to introduce you to somebody, and honestly, the entire purpose of my show has been to introduce you to this person. Okay. I'm going to introduce you to this person. Okay. This individual's name is Jesus of Nazareth. Okay. He was born 2,000 years ago in first century Palestine from a virgin, and he was crucified. He died. He really did die. It wasn't a fake death. He wasn't just like, okay, I'm going to pretend I'm dead so that, no, it was a real death. He really died. He suffered. He died. We buried him. And then 3 days later, his body, he rose from the dead in his body. Okay. Now, why am I sitting here talking about a 2,000-year-old Galilean carpenter? Because this guy you see on this screen right here is our only model of holiness. Anybody else on the green earth who we make out to be our model of holiness, you are setting yourself up for massive, massive, massive disillusion. Yeah, Caitlin, I put way too much in today. And the thing is, I can never tell what the right amount is until it's too late. And then it's just like, so I'm going off on different tangents here. I'm talking about Jesus Christ, and now I'm talking about hair gel. I was introduced to this guy when I was a kid. And over the course of my life, I have gotten to know him better and better. And he worked miracles in my life. Things that I can't explain beyond his doing. He has never let me down. In 2,000 years, he's never let anybody down. In 2,000 years, this is the only human being. He's more than just a human being, but he is fully a human being. This is the only human being that's ever kept every single promise he's ever made. This is the only human being who cured me of a pretty serious uh, drug problem. And you know how, and you want to know how he did it? You want to know how I got over that hurdle in my life? Confession. Every time I would fall back, I'd go to confession. Every time I'd fall back, I'd go to confession. Until eventually it took. You know how astounding that is? That's got to be sanctifying grace. I didn't have to go to rehab. I didn't have to go to the doctor. I didn't have to go. It just, he cured it. I mean, the temptations are still there. They'll always be there. That itch will never go away. But I'm telling you, this guy works miracles in people's lives. Okay. When you're looking at people like this show, right? This show is not about me. And it's not about Jason. For the first, I think, 2 or 3 months we were doing our show, we were audio only because I didn't think anybody would be interested in seeing us. We got on the YouTube platform because we thought it might help audiences engage better. The show's not about us. And you wouldn't want it to be. Don't ever let Mark influence you. Because if Mark influences you, you're going to go to hell when you die. Okay? I'm just telling you, honest to goodness. You don't want to follow me. Okay? I'm a liar. I'm a thief. I like drugs. I like sex. I like all of those things. I like all those things. The old man who lives inside me likes all that stuff. And that's why me and Jesus have decided to kill him together. Okay? Because he's a problem. So when you see people in the church and it comes out that they're bad guys, instead of going, oh man, maybe all of holiness is a scam. Sometimes you can feel like that when people you hold out to be models of holiness turn out to not be. You kind of fall into this place where you're like, maybe it's all a scam. Am I the butt of a joke? You know what I mean? And the problem is who I was making my model of holiness. Okay. I've heard people recently say things like, well, the problem is we just can't let lay people do certain things within the church because we need to let priests and bishops do everything. Yeah, because those guys will never let you down, right? That's not going to do it. That ain't going to work. Not in terms of solving the disillusionment problem or the scandal issue. So what I mean when I say scandal, I don't mean that you'll never be disappointed by people and people will always be who you think they are. That's unrealistic. What I mean is it won't disquiet your faith anymore. It won't drag you away from faith. As long as you keep the focus where it needs to be and understand that the only perfect Catholic was the Blessed Virgin Mary, right? I say that because she's obviously not God. She's not the head of the church. Jesus Christ is the head of our church. She's a follower of Jesus Christ. She's a lay person. I mean, you could technically say I guess we would call her a religious, right? Because she had vows of chastity, obviously. But in the first century AD, the church did not have religious orders, right? So she's a lay person, just like you, the perfect follower of Jesus Christ. So she is a model of holiness, but she's a model of holiness because she perfectly reflects Jesus Christ. Okay. She brings Jesus Christ to the world it perfectly in a way that no one else ever has, right? She is literally the Theotokos. So the idea that, well, lay people shouldn't teach the faith. That should only be priests and bishops who do that. And then this won't happen. History has shown that that ain't necessarily going to solve the problem. B, it's not an accurate Catholic way to look at things. I'm going to quote here the Catechism of the Catholic Church, Catechism number 900. Since, like all the faithful, lay Christians are entrusted by God with the apostolate by virtue of their baptism and confirmation, they have the right and duty, individually or grouped in associations, to work so that the divine message of salvation may be known and accepted by all men throughout the earth. This duty is the more pressing when it is only through them that men can hear the gospel and know Christ. Their activity in ecclesial communities is so necessary that, for the most part, the apostolate of the pastors cannot be fully effective without it. It goes on in 901. Hence, the laity, dedicated as they are to Christ and anointed by the Holy Spirit, are marvelously called and prepared so that even richer fruits of the Spirit may be produced in them. For all their works, prayers, and apostolic undertakings, family and married life, daily work, relaxation of mind and body, if they are accomplished in the Spirit, indeed, even the hardships of life, if patiently borne, all these become spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. In the celebration of the Eucharist, these may most fittingly be offered to the Father along with the body of the Lord. And so, worshiping everywhere by their holy actions, the laity consecrate the world itself to God, and everywhere offering worship by the holiness of their lives. Guys, if you don't, sometimes you just got to get the catechism out and dig into it, because I tell you what, they've got some ways of saying things that are just incredible. So bottom line, what does that mean? No, it is not just the responsibility of priests and bishops to teach the faith. That is not true. Okay? Plus, yeah, it would be great if they would do that, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, most of them don't seem particularly interested in doing that these days. So here we are. We're all we have for the most part, unfortunately. Maybe that's changing. I don't know. And it doesn't really matter what you hear about other people, what you hear about people's personal lives or their private lives or whatever. The only thing that we need to focus on is Christ. So when you hear, look, and I've said this before on this program, I hope not, and I honestly don't see this, I don't see my life heading in that direction. But it's entirely within the realm of possibility. You could wake up one day and hear a story about me. Mark was found in a hotel in Las Vegas with a bunch of prostitutes and a bunch of cocaine. I don't see that happening. I don't plan on that happening. And I think in the direction that I'm heading right now, I don't think that's going to happen. But if you want to know, am I capable of that? It isn't even a question. It's not even a question. Go read your catechism. Go read your Bible. That question was answered in Eden. And if you think that story ends with, and we said, absolutely not, you're about to be very disappointed. Okay? There's an old Irish priest who once told me the thing about mortal sin is you're better at it than you think. And that has stuck with me over time. And I see it every day. Lori just said, I don't understand the whole influencer title on individual social media. Jesus told all to spread the gospel. Singling out one person, influencer is just setting it up as an idol. 100%. That's so well said. That's the other thing that I've been hearing lately in this conversation as well. Us influencers need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. Everyone should hold themselves to a higher standard. Everyone. Every lay person in the Catholic Church should hold themselves to the higher standard. Now, you want to know what the higher standard that you should hold yourself to is? There it is. Now, you're never going to meet that standard. You're never going to fulfill that perfectly. Okay? But that's the standard we should all hold ourselves to. Yes, Mary perfectly fulfills the standard, but you're not the Virgin Mary. Mary was conceived without sin. The rest of us have the stain of original sin on us, which means that our sin is cleansed at baptism, but it left a little dent in our soul. And that dent has got to be buffed out over the course of your life. That is essentially what sanctifying grace does. is it buffs out that dent. That dent is concupiscence, right? And so concupiscence is a theological term. It basically means an unnatural attraction to evil. Okay. So our nature, when you hear people say human beings are naturally evil, that is not true. Our nature is to be good. Our nature is as God created us, so we are created to be good. Unfortunately, we have an unnatural attraction to evil things. So, if you never want to be scandalized ever again, all you have to do whenever you hear one of these stories, whenever somebody that you trust, whenever it comes out that they were a bad person from the beginning, and some of these people weren't even trying to be good people, some of these people are charlatans and they're frauds and they're here to prey upon people. I liken the Catholic Church to the Garden of Eden, created by God for us to live in. But like the Garden of Eden, not everything in this garden is your buddy. Not everyone in here is your friend. Okay? You have to be careful about who you trust and how you allow yourself to fall into certain people's sphere of influence. The idea that what Catholicism is yes, we are a hierarchical religion, to be sure. And the hierarchy is a good thing to have. But the idea that, well, the priests and the bishops do all your thinking for you, and you just sit down here and just do whatever they say and don't ask any questions. That's not Catholicism. That is not our religion at all. If it was, they wouldn't even print books like this for you to read. And if you read the book, that is clearly not what Catholicism teaches. God created this religion so that children could understand it, basically. And yes, there are higher points of theological argumentation. You can study, deep theological teachings like the hypostatic union and things like that at a more advanced level, however you need to. But honestly, let's ask ourselves this question. Could you go to heaven and not know what the Immaculate Conception is? I'm not saying you deny the Immaculate Conception, but you don't know. You grew up in a time where literacy is not widespread. Only clerics go to university and college to learn about deep theological ideas. You know about Jesus Christ, and you understand that the Virgin Mary is the Virgin Mary, but you don't understand deep theological things like the Immaculate Conception or the hypostatic union or whatever. Could you still go to heaven? Yeah, we know that because St. Dismas went to heaven. He didn't know anything about the Virgin Mary's conception, right? I don't think you can deny the Immaculate Conception, but you can certainly not know what that is. The only thing I don't think you can deny is the cross, right? That's a non-starter. It's a non-negotiable thing. Jesus Christ said in the Gospels, unless you take up your cross, you cannot be my disciple. So suffering is an integral part of what it is that we do. But in terms of, how learned you are and how many, things like that, I don't know that that's so much the point. I forgot where I was going with this. So it's hard to do a show by yourself because there's nobody there to keep me on track. Where was I going with this? We're talking about influencers and we're talking about all this, that, and the other thing. I look at people's content, I see what the show is about, and there's certain people on Instagram and on Twitter and all these places, and I look and they always seem to be the star of the show. They're the source of the conversation. Can you believe what so and so said? Oh, I liked so and so's show. Oh, I really like the what this person said. It's okay to like what people say. It's all right to like shows and things like that. I hope you guys like our show. But the show is not when the show is about me. When every Instagram post you see is me posing in front of a camera and doing all this, and I'm clearly the subject of everything. You got to wonder, what is this really about? Who are you really trying to talk about here? I want to talk about this guy because this guy worked miracles in my life. He's worked miracles in other people's lives that are unexplainable. I don't I don't know that any of you are particularly interested in me or Jason. I know we're not particularly interesting people. Okay. We're lay people. We have jobs. We live in Houston, Texas. End of story. Right. Um, so that's one of the things that I look at. But whenever you hear somebody say, whenever a story breaks that the people who you thought they were not who they thought they were, it will hurt, obviously, because no one likes to be betrayed. But it doesn't need to drag you away from church. I mean, there are people who are posting things online about how they're never going to go back to church ever again. And I'm thinking, yeah, because the world will never, the world will never do this to you. What? That's crazy. The world is the actually this will happen to you in the world. The only difference is in the world, everybody will be like, well, yeah, that's of course they think it's the right thing to do, to lie to people and manipulate people, victimize people, and all that's celebrated out there. That's ridiculous. You don't want to do that. And then there's other people who are saying things like, this is clearly proof that only bishops and priests should talk about the faith, and the rest of us should sit down, shut up, and just be told what to believe. Yeah, because those guys will never disappoint you, right? Is that true? Like, come on. That's obviously not the answer. So what's the answer? Take everybody on an individual basis as they go, and when you see something that's not right, oh, that's what I wanted to talk about. Guys, listen to your feelings. God gave us feelings and as a way to communicate with us. Now, I'm not saying your emotions need to be in the driver's seat. I'm not talking about emotions necessarily. Emotions can be quite fleeting, and they can often lead you to make decisions that are not wise in the long run. But I'm talking about feelings. Our Lord had feelings. He had beautiful feelings. So therefore, having feelings is not a bad thing. If you're if you're getting a weird feeling and a weird, I hate to use new age language, but that's the parlance of our time. If you get a weird vibe, such a new age term, it's such a ridiculous one. If you get a weird vibe from someone and you can't put your finger on it, listen to that. Pay attention to that. Okay. Uh, your real friends don't test your boundaries. They don't even approach your boundaries. It's a sign of respect to not approach your friends' boundaries. Okay. And so when you've got somebody who's constantly testing the waters to see what they can get away with, man, cut those people out. Don't follow their show. Don't follow their just nah. Get away from those people. They're trying to manipulate you. Okay. Um, I am losing my voice. I've been talking to people all day long. So I hope you don't mind if I take a swig of water here. I got this really dynamite mug that I bought at CVS of all places, and this thing is saving my life because I can just hold like tons of water in here, and I carry it to court with me, and it's pretty nice. Okay. Um, so I talked about the influence. I talked about the catechism. I talked about Jesus Christ. Oh, there's one more thing I want to talk about. Okay, this might be kind of a short episode. I don't know. And if you guys want to talk about some other things, drop it in the comment section. I'd be happy to start a dialogue on stuff. I don't know if there's any young people who listen to our show. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if the answer was no. Neither Jason or I are particularly hip or cool. We're certainly not, we're certainly not young people ourselves. So I don't know if there's any young people who listen to the show. When I say young people, I'm talking about teenagers, right? Uh, People who are in their formative young years, right? Teenage people. Um, if you're a young person, you're a teenage person, keep an open dialogue with your parents as much as you can. I think for the most part, most of you, and this does not include everybody, and unfortunately there are people who this doesn't apply to, your parents really do have your best interests at heart. If there's somebody in your life that is giving you a weird feeling, or you feel like is trying to pressure you or manipulate you into some kind of relationship or some kind of situation that doesn't feel right, and you can't even put your finger on what it is. I know, but I don't. There's nothing I can point to here to show why this is wrong. Talk to somebody that you trust. Talk to ideally your parents, right? Ideally your parents, but maybe there are situations where that isn't possible, or maybe not a good idea. I don't know, but a priest that you trust, a teacher that you trust. If the priest or the teacher is the issue, then obviously somebody else. But there's no need to suffer in silence for things like that. You know, Dad, is it normal that my soccer coach wants to talk about this with me in a text message? Mom, is it normal that one of my teachers is talking about this subject matter with me and I don't feel comfortable with it, or something like that? Maybe there's some of you who are already in kind of a bad situation and it's been going on for a long time, and you're sitting there thinking, yeah, I guess I could have done something to stop it earlier on, but it's too late now and there's nothing I can do. That's not true. That's not true. It's not your fault. And abuse is never the fault of the victim. So talk to somebody, right? You can get help. It's okay. I don't, there's this thing that happens where we feel like if we don't go along with what certain people in authority are telling us to do, then that's us not trusting in God's plan for us, or that's us not trusting the church, or that's us not trusting whatever. But there is no sin that Jesus wants you to commit for the greater good. That is incorrect. That is not what Christ does. And there's no abuse that our Lord wants you to tolerate at the hands of someone who is trusted because it's God's will for you or something like that. I just don't. That's not true, and you should talk to somebody about that. And there's no need to. So in Catholicism, it's kind of strange because we do put sort of this theological. What am I trying to say? Suffering is seen as something holy, right? Something good to do, right? So take up your cross, right? Suffer in the name of the Lord. That can kind of go into a dark place, an inordinate place, where we believe that it's our lot in life to just be abused by people. And so we have to go through those things because, that's suffering and Christ wants me to suffer. That's my cross and I'm going to bear it. The cross is not just suffering. It's a type of suffering. Okay. What is the cross? The cross is the price that the world makes you pay for telling the truth. That's what it was for Christ. If you think about it, Christ never had to lie to avoid crucifixion. He just had to stop talking. Go live with your 12 disciples out in the desert, have your little weirdo religious movement, and then, go away. But the truth was so important to Christ because he is the truth that wasn't even an option for him. And so when we take up our cross, what we're talking about is things like when they ask you hard questions about the faith, like, don't you believe trans women are women, or whatever, whatever the new thing is out there that you have to say, and you don't say it, and they take your job away, and they Some countries throw you in prison for not saying things that are untrue. That's the cross. Okay, that's the cross. The cross is the price you pay for telling the truth. The cross is not systematic abuse heaped on you for the purpose of other people's enjoyment. That's not what the cross is, and there's no need to do that. So, uh, you did not choose me, I chose you. It is arrogant to tell God what you will sacrifice or suffer. He decides, so it means listening and a friendship. Yeah, that's true. But that also does not mean that you have to allow yourself to be systematically abused by people because that's God chose you to suffer. I mean, now, certainly if that happened to you, you can turn that suffering into grace. You can still be, and you still will go through a suffering if it happened to you. There's no way around that. But it doesn't have to continue, and nor should it. You know, you're called to virtue and holiness. So don't let anybody take that away from you. Don't let anybody take that away from you. That's no, I don't think that's a good idea. Those weird feelings you get about people you can't quite put your finger on have always been validated eventually in my experience. Yeah, because that's how God talks to us. And then there's those weird feelings you get. I saw that one. And then adults talk amongst themselves about naming spiritual abuse from church hierarchy, a bit like what Judas is supposed to show us. St. Martin, expound on that a little more, because I'm not sure what you mean by that. It is never acceptable for a person in authority to talk to you into doing something sinful. That is their sin, not yours. Don't let anyone do that to you. 100%. 100%. Um, I was so disillusioned by this person that I used to hold out as a model of holiness. He was a priest, and he was turned out to be one of the worst ones that came out of the sex abuse scandal. And nothing I believed about him was true. And it bothered me. It led me away from the church because I came away from this whole thing that holiness was a scam. It isn't a scam. Judas was the opposite of how he presented himself. Yeah, he was. Yeah. And again, yeah, you're right. I see what you're saying. He was called, um, and his call was real. I'm reading this great book about the crucifixion of the Son of God. It's written from an Orthodox perspective. I'll be 100% honest, but let's be honest, the Orthodox have retained enough of the apostolic faith that I can get into this book, and they understand it was a sacrifice. They understand the Eucharist is a continuation of that sacrifice, so they can still look at it from that lens. But it's a very interesting meditation on Judas Iscariot. I've meditated on him a lot because I think that's probably the biggest cautionary tale in the Gospels, because his call was real. And it wasn't like Jesus put him there just so he could betray him and then make an example out of him or something like that. At every point, Judas had the ability to actually repent and to be a real disciple, and he chose not to. And his story is notorious, obviously. Um, but even knowing that he was going to betray him, and then of course you can get into how can he know something, and then I don't like to spend a lot of time wondering what it's like to be God, because I'm never going to be called to fill that role. So when you spend too much time doing that, your brain runs in circles. Don't wonder too much about how we can have free will, but God still knows everything. It's a little bit too much time spent in the mind of God that you're not going to be able to really get anyway. You just have to know that our freedom is real. Okay. Like, why would Judas betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver? And there's all this explanation, like maybe he never really believed Jesus was the Messiah, which I think that's true. I don't think Judas ever really believed Jesus was who he said he is. And but the real reason why did Judas betray Jesus? We don't want to think about it because it's just too crass, but it's the truth. That's what it says in the gospel. He did it for money. He did it for money. Stinking money. We all have our. You got to worship something, and he didn't want to worship God, so you got to. He did what he did for money. Uh, yeah. Speaking, I used to have a co-host once upon a time, and he has decided to go off and better himself doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu and taking care of his family. What? Who does that? Instead of being an influencer. Break. Uh, let's see. There's an echo or something from the mic. Okay, thank you for letting me know that. Let me try. Let me try fixing that. Hang on a second. Default. Okay. I thought I fixed that. No, there you go. Scarp. Come on. I'm trying, guys. Give me a second here. Okay, hang on 1 second. Hang on, I'll be right back. Okay, let's try this. Let's see. It won't let me change my microphone. Oh, I hate when it does this. I absolutely hate when it does this. Thank you, StreamYard, for just being terrible. I don't know. Man, I hate when it does this. It just ruins my whole show. Anyway, it was one of my worst shows ever, and it didn't even accomplish what I wanted to do because apparently no one's been able to hear me. I keep trying to click on the right mic, and it's not working. Well, another brilliant show from, you know what, forget everything I've said. Follow all the influencers and do Well, I have a better mic. The mic that you're hearing is the mic that's on my little camera, but I have this Scarlett mic. It's really good, and for some reason it won't let me. It won't let me. It's got it on here as an audio option, but every time I click on it, it just reverts to this other thing. I don't know. Sorry about that. Okay, well, I don't really have anything else. There's no need to be scandalized by bad people in the church. Um, but like take care of yourself out there. Use prudence, discern spirits, right? We're always taught to discern spirits. So it's not the case that, and everybody who holds themselves out there to be this expert on, I'm not an expert on anything. I'm not an influencer, and I'm certainly no apologist. I've never really got into the apologetics thing because I'm not that good at that. It's not that I don't think apologetics is a worthy endeavor. It's just not my thing. I'm not good at recalling chapters and verses, and I'm not that guy. There's other people who are better at that than me. All I ever wanted to do with this show is tell you about Jesus Christ and and let him work a miracle in your life that he worked in mine. Because make no mistake, Jesus Christ is not a dead man. He did die, but he is not a dead man. He's alive. He is resurrected and ascended to glory. He sits at the right hand of the Father. And he will come back one day and he will raise us up in our bodies. I really do believe that that's true. And I think you should too. I'll put it to you this way. I think every human being on earth owes themselves an honest conversation about Jesus of Nazareth. Is he who he says he is? Because if he's not who he says he is, he's actually a very bad man. Okay? But what if the story's true? What if, I mean, you have to admit, if it's true that God became a man, then that is the most significant thing that has ever happened in the history of the cosmos. Creation itself pales in comparison to that. So we owe it to ourselves to ask the question, is he who he says he is? Now, the story of Jesus is not like the story of Muhammad or Joseph Smith. Jesus didn't appear privately just to Peter and say, okay, Peter, I've resurrected, but you're the only one who can see me. But to everybody else, I'll just look dead. But you'll go back and you'll tell everybody, you know. And then Peter comes out of a cave. Guys, you're not going to believe this. He's back, but only I can see him. That's not Christianity. That's Islam. It's also Mormonism. Okay, you can deny those. You can deny those miracles all day long. It costs you nothing. How do we deny the resurrection of Jesus? An event witnessed by over 500 people in first century Palestine. That's tougher to do. It was a public execution. Everybody saw it. Everybody saw the burial. And here's the thing. If he didn't rise from the dead, you can never really prove a negative, with one exception, the resurrection. If it didn't happen, you can prove it. You know how? So my grandmother died in 2003. She did not rise from the dead, and I can prove it. I can take you to her grave. We can open that grave, and her body would be there. There's the proof that she didn't rise from the dead. If Jesus did not rise from the dead, then there really isn't any reason why anybody should even know his name. He shouldn't even be a famous person. You could have put the Christian movement out of business like that instantly. The temple authorities could have gone to the sepulcher, dragged the body out, thrown it on the steps of the Temple Mount, and gone there. There's your resurrected Messiah. Are we done with this now? But that doesn't happen. Well, why? If the resurrection didn't happen, it should be the easiest thing in the world to disprove. 2,000 years later, they can't do it. 2,000 years later, that tomb is still empty. That's got to be explained. And also, not only is it empty, the only accounting we have from first century eyewitnesses is a resurrected Jesus. There are no other first century who are like, yeah, I know what really happened. Let me tell you what really happened. We stole his body in the middle of the night and we hid it somewhere and all that. It should have been so easy to disprove. There's no explanation for the rise of the early church. There's no explanation for Saul of Tarsus. It's real. Anyway, that's all I have. Don't pay attention to any other influencers other than Jesus Christ. Only if you want to pay attention to me, only do so in the sense that I actually bring Christ to you. But as far as me and my private life, my personal life, my past, oh man, you'd be so disappointed. You'd be so disappointed in me. I'm disappointed in myself. That's why I converted. You'd be amazed at the evil you're capable of. You would be amazed at the evil you're capable of. Don't stray far from Christ, because it's the only thing that keeps us, that is the only thing that will keep us holy. It's the only means of salvation available to us. That's it. It's not like if you don't like what Jesus has to say, you go down the street to Buddha and you get salvation through him. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. I'm sorry. I don't make the rules. It is what it is. Okay. That's all I got. This is one of the worst shows ever. I apologize, but I think a lot of people were upset, and hopefully, if anything I said made you less upset, that would be wonderful. Okay. And pay attention to who pays attention to your kids. All right. That's all I got. I hope everybody is having a wonderful week. I've had a rough day. My voice is completely gone. Really? Thank you, man. I really appreciate you saying that, because I feel so out of sorts when I'm up here by myself. It's hard. One of my favorite talk shows when I was growing up was the Rush Limbaugh show. I loved Rush, and I still admire Rush to this day, because Rush got up there and did a 3-hour show by himself from Monday through Friday for like 25 years. Incredible. I don't know how he did, and he was entertaining, and he was I don't know, he just did fantastic. I really like doing shows with Jason. Jason is a great guy to do shows with. Yeah, I miss that guy. We don't get to hang out as much as we used to. Well, he's a good dad, and he's a great husband, and I see him at mass all the time, and he's always bringing his whole family to mass. It's just such a great thing to see. I've often said I wish I would have had a dad like Jason, because I don't know. I appreciate that guy. I really do. He's probably my best friend. Anyway, Jason, come back and do a show with me, man. Please, because it's a lot more fun when it's both of us. Thank you guys for saying this was a great show. Wasn't I wanted it to be better, and in fact, I had all this stuff planned in my head, thinking, oh, I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this, and then I get on here and I just. But that's it. It's never. No one should. I'm not that interesting or entertaining or anything. I'm not here to entertain anybody, right? I just want to tell you about Jesus Christ. That's all I want to do. Because he can work miracles in your life. He can get you off drugs. He can get you out of prostitution. He can get you out of gangs. He can get you out of all these horrible things. These horrible things we get ourselves into. I'm telling you, he not only can he get you out, he is the only way out. I really do believe that. I know people who have been to rehab multiple times and never really kick it. It's no reflection on them. Some drugs are hard. Some drugs are hard for people to kick sometimes, depending on, especially the drug. Things like heroin, which, thank by the grace of God, I never got into. You know, imagine knowing you can never do that again, but knowing you'll never feel good ever again. Like, sobriety for a heroin addict is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And you'll learn, basically what you learn in rehab is how not to scratch the itch, but the itch never goes away. It never goes away. And, be honest, in terms of me and substances and things like that, it ain't gone away from me either. That itch is still there. I've learned how to live with it and how to conquer it. And it's by the grace of God. I have no other explanations. I have no other explanation, guys. That doesn't mean that Mark's a great guy. Not really. If he was such a great guy, he never would have gotten into this stuff in the first place. He never would have looked at pornography in the first place. He never would have told a lie in the first place. He never would have stolen from anybody in the first place. So don't look at me thinking, I'm certainly not your model of holiness. That 100% I can guarantee you. If you follow me, you're going to go to hell when you die. Let's follow Christ together. Because he's the only way. There's nobody else. Yeah, I need to get some. I do. I need some tea. That is. Yeah. I have this. I love Sleepy Time tea. That herbal essence of Sleepy Time tea. Oh man, that stuff is great. Um, Incarnating, growing down is soulful and often sourdough. King David sums it up: 70 years we have best, and most of that labor and sadness. I don't get it. Anyway, that's all I got, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope this was somewhat fruitful for you. Don't ever be scandalized. Don't quit going to church because people are bad in the church. I think, isn't it St. Paul? I think it's in Colossians, or is it in Ephesians, where he says, the sick members of the body bring the body down, but the healthy members of the body shore the body up. See, again, this is why I'd be terrible at apologetics. I can't quote chapter and verse. But I remember messages, from scripture. And that's one that I like to think about. The healthy members of the mystical body shore up the body. So go to church, say your prayers, pray your rosary. And there's a great, is it Corinthians? 1 Corinthians 12:26. Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate that. Thank you. You guys are better apologists than me. There is a prayer, and it's a liturgical prayer. This is a vesting prayer, okay? If you were ever an altar boy at the traditional Latin Mass, you know this prayer. Or if you're a priest, you'll know this prayer too. But if you're woman, you probably never heard this prayer, so I'll tell it to you. It comes from one of Paul's letters, and it's for the surplice, the white garment that goes over the cassock. Okay, when you put the surplice on, you kiss the surplice and you say, Indume Domine novum hominum, quia secundum Deus creatus est in justitia et sanctitate veritatis, which is such a beautiful prayer, which means, clothe me, Lord, with the new man created in the image of God, in justice and the holiness of truth. That prayer, I will never forget that prayer. And sometimes I just pray it to myself, even though I'm not putting on a surplice or anything. Because it's such a great prayer and it encompasses what we have to do as Christians. Amplifying your point about the itch to secede from this life and alter consciousness. Yeah. Life at first glance tempts to this. We're accepting one's cross unites with the Lord 100%. Oh yeah, 100%. And it's 100%. I'm deadening the pain with a narcotic so that I don't have to take up my cross. That's not going to get you to heaven. That's not going to work. Drunkenness is a sin. It doesn't really matter what your drunkenness is on. That doesn't just apply to alcohol. It applies to any narcotic that you overuse. And there are of course some narcotics that you can only overuse, right? You can't use responsibly. I'm a casual user of methamphetamine. No, it doesn't work that way. So yeah. Clothe me, Lord, in the image of God. Clothe me, Lord, with the new man created in the image of God in justice and the holiness of truth. So there's the new man in Christ. We put on the new man to kill the old man. The old man is a sinner. He is capable of great evil. There's a comedian I follow. I don't follow him. I listen to some of this stuff. He's been in recovery too. And he has a great line about what it's like to be a recovering addict of anything, right? He says, when you're in recovery, when you're alone, you're alone with the person who tried to kill you. And that is so accurate. The old man is trying to kill me. So me and Jesus have to kill him first. He's got to die. He's got to go. He can't hang around. Yes, we are a new creation. Like we refer to the cosmos creation. Yes. And I want to talk for a second about cooperation with God, saying yes to God, and how powerful your own yes can be. Okay? Because I think sometimes when I say, let's say yes to God's will, we might think, okay, how is that going to change anybody? How is one person saying yes going to change anything? I got a great example for you. And if you're a Protestant, or even if you're a Mormon or a Jehovah's Witness or whatever, you have to believe that this statement is true. The Old Testament ends and the New Testament begins with Mary's yes. That's powerful. That yes set into motion a series of events that would eventually destroy death. That is huge. A 14 or 15-year-old farm girl from Nazareth with complete fiat. Fiat is a Latin word that basically means complete and total submission to your will. It's not just a yes. It's a yes with no reservations. That yes was so powerful, we literally started the calendar over again. Anyway, that's always been a powerful meditation for me. May Almighty God bless each and every one of us, and take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and life is hard, but it's harder when you don't pray the rosary. I wish I had a better outro than that. Thanks, guys, very much. I love you guys, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Take care.